So I just want to thank everybody for joining us in today's discussion. This is our first week of uh, monthly um, virtual roundtables that we're going to be doing. And today's topic is on building campus partnerships and student support services. Um, so hopefully we'll all learn a little something from each other and get some ideas to share as any good roundtable does. Let's first go around the room, the virtual room, introduce ourselves. My name's Chris Davidson. I'm the Outreach and Community Services Librarian at Northwestern University. And this is kind of what most of my job is working with campus partners. So why don't we start from my left, Amanda?
Sure. I'm Amanda Peters. I work at the University of Michigan, and I'm the Learning Communities Librarian. But I work out of the undergraduate library, so I do a lot of outreach to undergraduate populations on our campus.
Amy?
Me, Amy?
Yes, you, Amy.
They're in a different order on my screen. So I'm Amy Wainwright. I'm the Outreach and Student Engagement Librarian. And I primarily work with students, specifically student groups, and I do have a colleague that kind of is more faculty focused, but really that ends up meaning that we collaborate on a ton of different activities.
Emily?
Hey, my name's Emily, librarian actually at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. We don't have a librarian who does outreach or who does promotion or that kind of thing specifically. It's all done by committee. But I'm co-chair of our Outreach and Events Committee, and I'm chair of our Publicity Committee.
Cool. Aaron? Aaron, can you hear us? All right, we'll move to Lacey while Aaron fixes her sound issues.
Hi, I'm Lacey Torge. I'm up here in upstate South Carolina. I'm a brand new job here about 2 weeks ago as social media and outreach librarian at a technical college. We have no historical relationship to outreach beyond some bookmarks, and so just total blank slate here.
Maria?
Hey everybody, my name is Maria Atalano. I work at the University of North Florida's Thomas G. Carpenter Library as Marketing and Outreach Librarian. I work primarily with student outreach, and I do quite a few partnerships with other departments on campus, including our Campus Life and our Student Union, which does weekly market days that we do booths for. We also work with orientation and, sorry, that's my phone, and other things that happen to go on around campus. And this has been a relatively new job for me. I've only had it for a couple years, but so we're just sort of trying new things, events and programming as they come up, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to doing more around campus.
Awesome. Aaron, welcome back.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I'm Erin Meyer. I'm another member of the ULS Academic Outreach Committee. I'm the Student Outreach Librarian, and I also coordinate the Research Center, which is our reference service point here at the University of Denver. Over the last 6 years that this position has existed, I've collaborated with most every unit on campus, but there are always good new opportunities and, of course, staff turnover at each of these places where established relationships have been built. So we're working with student life in a number of different divisions within that department. First year orientation, I'm currently working on stress relief with the Health and Counseling Center, so they're coming and bringing various stress relief activities to the library here next couple weeks out. Work with the business and finance librarian on Money Smart Week outreach, so sort of got my hand in a lot of different pots, but I'd love to hear more ideas and experiences, especially about, again, maintaining relationships in divisions that have. With our student life division, we have a lot of turnover because we have a lot of graduate interns from the School of Education that we work with and develop relationships with, and then they're gone in a year or two.
Yeah. So to get our conversation started, So for those of us who have cultivated successful partnerships, share some ideas like who are the campus partners that you've been working with, and how did you form your partnerships, and kind of what impact has that had on your services to students?
I could go ahead and start. So the most fruitful partnership that I've had over the years has actually been with the Office of New Student Programs. Um, we've historically always had a place in orientation with them, but I was able to sort of build on capital over the years to get sort of my fingers into other things that they do, like their Welcome Week events and different information fairs that they have and stuff like that. So I guess one suggestion I'd have is if you know, even just get one thing started, that it might, help build other, other partnerships, like even within that same group. Another thing that another offshoot that that group has is transfer student information sessions, and so we've been able to get involved with those, and so it's been a really great partnership.
I think as far as starting partnerships, the thing that's really helped with us has been, especially with me, is just being aware of what's going on. So I read our daily emails that come in for faculty and staff. They do a sort of newsletter. That's how I got in with Campus Life, because I found out that they were doing something called a Week of Welcome, something they started new for students coming back for the fall semester. And I thought, the library should be really into that. So I joined their committee and I started going to their meetings, and I somehow ingratiated us into that. And now they come to us for everything, and it's just been a great way to get us started. And I also watch things on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, because I run our pages, and if anything's going on around campus, I know about it, and I will usually be there just sort of mooching around looking for opportunities. Made some really great friendships and partnerships that way. So just sort of getting your foot in is really the best place to start.
We did a similar thing at Northwestern too. The HR department does a monthly newsletter, and we reached out to the people that do that one and said, hey, we'd like to participate in this too, because we've got all these resources for staff as well. And actually that led to a whole other presentation that we did for one of the campus, what do they call it, development, professional enrichment services, I think, that gave us a lot of people that we could actually talk to that work with students as well. So kind of using that gap to, bridging that gap between helping staff and also helping students.
I think for me, the first partnership that we made, or that was made with my position shortly before I got into this job, was with our student health, which is kind of student health department, student health group. They're kind of a subset of student affairs and student activities. And through that partnership, so we do regular twice monthly events with them promoting kind of wellness, basically. And through that partnership, then we've managed to leapfrog into other departments, including things like we have a counseling services center on campus, and so now we have a relaxation room in our library that was all funded through the counseling center. And so it's like, it is that, like, you make one relationship and then you get to keep kind of bridging out and growing out from there.
So tell us more about the relaxation room.
Exactly.
I am super proud of it. So basically, the counseling center had gotten a grant for some funding to create a space, and they didn't know where the space should go. And so we were like, this is a perfect fit for our learning commons, basically. So our learning commons is very, like, it's academic focused, but then it also has all these other components to it, really trying to address the student in a holistic view, which was an issue for our students. That's still being worked out a little bit. So it's a group study room, but it doesn't look like that anymore. We've completely, it's got a massage chair in it, and we had a computer installed with some biofeedback software. And then there's kind of guided meditation pamphlets and things like that. So there's like yoga mat in there, and the whole space, there's like a little water fountain kind of, feature thing.
Man.
And I know, and we didn't pay for pretty much any of this, which was wonderful. And the students, they can sign up for time slots, and they're basically like in there for a half hour at a time. And we just opened it in late November / early December, right before finals, and the students love it. And it's constantly being used, and I don't know, it's been a fantastic partnership, basically.
Where in the library is it located?
So our Learning Commons, our whole library is 3 floors, and our Learning Commons is the lower level. And so it's basically in a group study room, like just off of the Learning Commons in our lower level. So it's kind of like, still has the proximity thing, and yet is a little bit secluded, which has been, we've had to kind of walk through what could potentially go on in this room, because it faces out into our little reading garden, but it has blinds on the wall. So it is like the students can go in there, and there's a partition that they can put in front of the door. So it's like, I don't know, it both affords privacy, which is what we actually did want, and it affords privacy in kind of the bad way. But we don't think there hasn't been any reported incidents. Nobody's been abusing the room, but it definitely was something we were kind of keeping an eye on.
I would suggest walkthroughs.
Oh, I know, absolutely.
We had issues in our prayer space, if you can believe that. Yeah.
We just opened a prayer space as well.
How long are the time slots that you give them?
30 minutes, and yeah, I mean, I don't think they've been going over their 30 minutes. I think the students have been kind of holding each other accountable to that, and basically, I mean, I do think we get repeat visits, maybe not even in the same day, but that's also a possibility too.
So you mentioned that there was some pushback a little bit for using a group study room for that. Will you talk about that a little bit and how you diffused it, maybe?
So the pushback didn't happen immediately after opening the relaxation room. It actually happened after we took away another group study room for an interfaith prayer room. And suddenly it was like students were angry about both rooms, like they hadn't been initially. So basically what's come of that is a lot more communication with the students, and actually I'm literally right in the process of forming a student advisory council for the first time at our library. So we want students to understand, I mean, so we have been freeing up a ton more study space in general, like because we've been shrinking reference collections and periodicals collections, things like that. So we have been freeing up study space, but they saw it as like, but it's a group study room very specifically. So it hasn't been fully worked out yet, I guess is my ultimate answer.
Well, space is at a premium in every library, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask a follow-up question about, you mentioned Student Advisory Council, and that's something that we're talking about putting together. So I'm interested in hearing about other librarians who have experience with Student Advisory Councils for their libraries, or how your process is going so far, that type of thing.
I would love to hear that too, because I'm really at the very beginning stages with this.
Okay,
so
great.
I need help too.
Does anybody have one?
I started one a couple of different semesters. I tried a couple of different tacks at getting one off the ground, and I have to admit I had a little bit of trouble with it. My first try at recruitment was just sort of like an open application process where I set up an info table at our open house event, and anybody who wanted to could sign up. And then the group of students that I had were all freshmen who were just sort of looking to get involved, but didn't really seem to have any real vested interest in what was happening at the library. And I guess the things that I came up with them to do just were not engaging enough, and so people stopped showing up for meetings and things like that. So I think my next tack that I'm going to take is to actually have faculty nominate students that they think might be interested in doing something like that, and that might, the nomination process might make students take it a little bit more seriously, and if they're sort of handpicked by faculty, that might help a little bit. So that's where I'm at with it.
We don't have an official one here, but what we have done, and we've been talking about putting one together, but we've been working with the Associated Student Government for a lot of stuff that's like that. Talking about, and they've actually been a really good partner in funding certain things. Like we did a renovation. We actually removed our entire reference room, pared it down from like 50,000 volumes to like 5,000 volumes, and took everything out of that space and turned it into a collaborative space for students because we didn't really have any of that in the library. Um, and then ASG came through with funding to enhance like the furniture and stuff in there. They brought in like more comfortable seating and stuff like that. So student government is another place to look at for that sort of information or partnerships.
That's a great idea.
I guess I was hoping, so basically I'm at the point where I've kind of created my marketing materials and a little survey to basically use as an application. But I've also spoken just in the last couple weeks with a handful of groups across campus. Honestly, it's come up in other conversations about things, and I've been like, hey, by the way, we're going to be starting this group. So I'm kind of hoping that by targeting each of these specific groups that I work with, including like grad students, and I've met with our African American Alliance on campus, and I'm trying to think, like international exchange students I work with pretty regularly, and these are all maybe considered minority groups on campus, I guess would be a good way to put it. But I think that those are the students that I'm worried won't apply otherwise, and then I'll only get kind of, I don't know, the frat and sorority and kind of other kids on campus. So I'm hoping that by targeting these smaller groups, I can specifically get some of them involved as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, great idea. I think I call them the usual suspects, the campus leaders who already are involved and over-involved, and how do you get the voices that aren't being represented or heard?
So expanding on that idea, so how do you identify campus partners to work with? And what are some of the building blocks that you use to develop relationships with them? Nobody. Nobody.
Well, I think I'll chime in. I think I'm always, like I said, I'm kind of torn between leveraging existing channels and outlets. So student government, you can reach a lot of students if you can get the ear of student government or collaborate with them, and they definitely have a bigger picture view of what's going on in campus than I'm a student who wants to have this in the library. But I also want to get those underrepresented students involved as well. But I do go to student life for, as many of you have already said, the first year orientations, things where large groups of students are going to be reached. And they also have, when thinking about partnership, if they already have like a good established communication channel throughout campus, they've got a calendar of events that other people are already looking at. So for us, the College of Business is very large, so that's a good partner. Student life is very large and has lots of subdivisions, but they already have channels to talk within student life. So if I can get a partnership with Health and Counseling Center, the residence hall directors are all going to hear about this event as well because they're all underneath student life. So leveraging large organizations that already have resources that I may not have, or channels of communication. I mean, they even have within our large student life division, most of the sub departments have their own graphic designer. So if I need something made, I can do it, but boy, it would be nice to have another partner to do that for me.
I guess one way we try to identify things is just by really paying attention to what the trends are on campus. So right now it's all about experiential learning and study abroad and entrepreneurship and things about after they graduate, what happens to them, out in the world. And so we've been trying to make inroads with different entrepreneurships on campus, with our career center, with our study abroad office. And so that's helped us sort of focus a lot of our outreach over the past year.
What I did when I started in this position was I actually just printed out a giant organizational structure of the university, and just looked around and found all of the departments that I thought we could have something to sell to them. Essentially, like we have an in because they do something that's kind of academic related. So like study abroad, the Office of Undergraduate Research, the Office of Fellowships, student services, or I'm sorry, residence life, um, career advancement. And basically, I started having one-on-one meetings with all of these people just to kind of learn a bit more about what they did, and then kind of pitch what we do and how we could help them out, whether it's like putting together a career live guide, how do you research, companies and things like that. And just kind of started the conversations with them that way. And then to build on that, what we ended up doing was, after having all those conversations and realizing how many of those conversations were exactly the same every time I had it with another person, and everyone else was saying, it's so hard because students don't know that this service is here and they don't take advantage of it. We're like, well, we have that problem too. We started putting together a student engagement group on campus. So we do quarterly meetings. We bring in all of these people to meet, actually, and we started doing it in the library, but it's gotten actually too big for the library, so now we do it in the student union, to kind of just talk once a quarter about what we're doing that quarter, what events and activities we might be able to pull together. And it's actually been really enlightening because each of those departments has a different student experience that they know of, that the other ones don't. So it's been very enlightening, talking to academic advising, because they have an insight on the student experience through, whether working through finals and midterms. I learned there that students call everything midterms on campus. So midterms is a constant thing until finals shows up. But so that's been a really enlightening partnership, just by getting all these people together at the same table. And a lot of different programs have developed from that by partnering with all those people.
Chris, would you be able to share a list of all of the people that meet in that group?
Yes.
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree that you have to have something to offer in order to make that first step partnership. And it helps that they have something to offer as well. So, for example, we recently paired up with our public relations department to bring therapy dogs on campus during finals week. I know all libraries have done this, and this is the first time we've done it. We were so excited. We always wanted to get dogs in the library, and it just never worked out. But it just so happened that our director of public relations is big friends with the president of the university, and she's got quite a bit of pull. So she was able to get those dogs in our library. And in exchange, we gave them the space, which was our beautiful first floor that is now under construction for the library commons. And we got to get her opinion on that. We got to get her in as we were starting to make plans, because she was already there for the dogs, and it just sort of snowballed into this really lovely relationship in which we helped them out. We gave them a space for the dogs, but then we also got them in our library looking at our plans for our new library commons. It was great.
Therapy dogs are super popular. We've been trying to get them here as well.
Oh, you have to do it. The foot traffic was unbelievable. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. We just started doing it. I think we've done it for 3 semesters now, and it's yeah, everybody loves it. Everybody comes. People, from the community who usually don't visit the library come into the library, so it's a huge opportunity.
We had the local news. We had the local news come in, and the campus newspaper wrote about it, and it just became a big thing. And of course, we take all the credit because all they know is the library has dogs. Oh my God! And they don't know that it was this whole thing, with public relations and whatever. But it was amazing, and I was there the entire time because I'm a big dog lover. So I got first pick.
Emily,
I
who do?
will say,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do have a horror story about therapy dogs. Anybody, basically, whatever you do, if you promise to have therapy dogs um, and advertise it as such, be aware that all of your therapy dogs could cancel at the last minute, and you could end up with one dog that's a tiny dog and a crowd of like hundreds of people anxiously awaiting therapy dogs. It's not a fun time, and it was.
Oh
And it
no.
sucked because we didn't. The library itself didn't. It doesn't organize these things. It's this. It's the student health group actually that I mentioned earlier, and so we looked really terrible, and the students were upset, and it has had some long-term repercussions.
That's so sad. Oh. And I know we got our dog specifically from the organization Canine Companions for Independence, and they're all big, and there were like 20 of them each time. So we were very lucky.
Who else? What I was going to ask is other people that have done the therapy dogs. Who did you reach out to bring the dogs in?
I reached out to a local animal shelter, their no-kill shelter, Lafayette Animal Aid, because I figured that if they didn't do therapy dogs, they might know someone who would, and they did. They hooked us up with the group called Pets for Health, and I was able to get the contact information for the volunteer coordinator there. So I deal with her directly, and then she sets us up with the dogs. And we have dogs that come every time, and dogs that have their own little like fan club. So that's actually been super helpful, and we've actually got people from the library now volunteering with Lafayette Animal Aid, that type of thing. And because our relationship with them is so good, they're always willing to come back. It's been something that's been really good for the library for sure. But I started out like not knowing who to contact, so I was just sort of making calls, you know.
Yeah, that's how I've been doing it too.
But yeah, it's good to make sure that it's with a organization as opposed, there always, it seems to me, people who pop up every semester like, oh, I could bring my dog in. I'm like,
right.
No, I'm sorry, the specific therapy dogs, go through like a little bit of a process before they become a therapy dog. So, we're pretty careful to keep it just to this particular organization that brings the dogs in. So yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. We had actually Health and Counseling Center booked a space in my library without coming to me as outreach librarian, and it was Health and Counseling Center staff people bringing their own personal pets, and you'd think that they would have known. So I literally ran out there, was managing the space, and the people, they had all these people looming over untrained dogs with no thought of water and breaks and that kind of thing. So we're hoping that in 2 weeks it will be much more controlled. We've got like 4 organizations where people are going to, and I'm trying to pull up that list so I can share it. People are going to be signing up to bring their animals. We have booked an outdoor space for them to go take a break, and I'm going to use stanchions like you have at the airport security line to keep people, in a proper line and to let in a few at a time, because they were just kind of swarmed at the last event. It was hugely popular, and thank goodness none of the dogs panicked or had any issue, but it was a little bit nerve-wracking for me in terms of risk and the dog's own safety.
Yeah.
We did a soft rollout with a single animal because I happened to meet a retired librarian who had a dog, and she said, "I'll bring it by," and we set that up in a nice quiet space, and it was great. We didn't promote it heavily. We just had a poster up, and there was the dog, and it got so many oohs and ahs and so many reposts on Facebook that it was like really paid off just for having one. And this was when we were renovating our library in a temporary space, so we didn't have room for a large event. Really got a lot of good feeling and got us to think through all the issues, I think, before we had a larger event.
That's actually, we've done that with massage therapists, and we actually don't really advertise it that much during exam. It's like one of our exam relief activities because we're a little paranoid that we would get we already get, by not advertising it, the people in the building is way more than we can possibly handle.
Yeah. So our collaborators this time, I've got, again, there's an intern within the Health and Counseling Center who's actually organizing the dogs, and I'm working on the space and the layout and all of that. Pet Partners, which is, I guess, just a therapy dog organization. And then within our university, we have an Institute for Human-Animal Connection and a School of Social Work that have people with trained animals. So we're really fortunate in that we have those two partners to reach out to.
Yeah, I think for our therapy dogs, the student health department, they have connections with an actual therapy dog organization, and then because we've been doing therapy dogs for a couple years now, basically we know all of the therapy dog owners that live in the neighborhoods around the school. So, yeah, so we basically like bring them in often enough that we definitely have regulars as well. And the only reason that we had this one failed miserable event is because we actually changed the time to be a little bit later, and it was terrible weather. And so even though they lived very close, they didn't want to like come outside basically and bring their dog in the terrible weather. So
how often is often enough?
So we have our wellness events where they come. That's only once a semester, but then the week or two before finals, they are not just in the library, although usually multiple times in the library, but they're around campus for, I would say they do like maybe 10 visits around campus, like 2 in the library, usually 1 or 2 in the student union, maybe to dorms directly, kind of where students congregate for the most part. So we do kind of like a concentrated visit with therapy dogs.
Maria and Emily, how often do you do yours?
Just once a semester. We usually do it every Wednesday of finals week is a dead day, so there are no finals scheduled. It's just a study day. So we always schedule it for that day. And the first time we did it, we were worried that nobody would show up because it would be, you know, they were all too busy studying, but that was not the case. So we just do it once a semester.
This was the first time we've done it, and we had it for 2 days. One was in late afternoon, and one was early afternoon, and one was late afternoon, 2 days of finals. And we don't know what's going to happen in April, but hopefully they'll want to come back. The year before, they had it at the game room on campus, and they didn't have nearly as many people as they did in the library. So fingers crossed.
Just a quick side note, I learned on Tuesday at our roundtable that in, surprise, surprise, outside of Portland, they have therapy llamas. So just keep that in mind.
Awesome.
Yes.
I just found out about therapy pigs and goats from this intern, so there are options.
Yes.
Anyone has a fear of dogs, but you can't have dogs and pigs on the same day.
No.
Yeah, that would be bad.
According to her research.
I have heard we're getting a petting zoo sometime soon, maybe for the end of the semester. So I will update everyone if this actually happens.
Please do. Just to push Julie's question out to the group, even though she can't speak because she doesn't have a mic. What about successful partnerships with student marketing clubs?
Oh.
I've not.
Not marketing clubs. I know that there is an advertising club on campus that I would love to get with, but we've worked with a graphic design club, which is a little bit connected, but they've actually done posters and flyers for us in the past. So that was actually a lot of fun. Free work is always good, and it looks good on their resume, that the fact that they did something for the library. It was for one of our free coffee and snacks events during finals week. And that was a lot of fun.
So aside from therapy dogs, what about any other programming or services that have come out of partnerships with other campus partners?
We've had a lot of success, and kind of like therapy dogs, it's not new, but scavenger hunts, because I can spin them large or small. So everything from just a standalone library event where we, have 30 to 40 students come in and after hours and run around the library all excited and crazy and learn skills they didn't know they were learning, to being integrated into that first year experience orientation week, which is huge, and we reach a lot more students, to word getting around that, hey, library scavenger hunts, they like that. So we had like the College of Business's Entrepreneurial Society ask my permission to use the library as a stop on their scavenger hunt. And I said, hey, why don't you let me write a couple of clues so I could embed talking points that I wanted into their smaller event. So that just, it's over the years we've done, I don't know, 10 different versions of a scavenger hunt and made it really work with different groups to meet their needs, and then also, again, to teach information literacy skills. Very similar skills to what we teach in a basic instruction workshop.
So is the incentive then usually something they have to complete for a class?
No, it's for fun.
Okay.
It's never been for a class. Now that being said, I say the ones I've run, we have a vacant position. Our science librarian position is unfilled. We've got a new one starting soon, but the student who's been doing some work in her stead did one for a biology class. So it's not that none of us have ever done that, but the ones that I run are just fun. And actually, that's how we got our foot in the door with Discoveries, which is the orientation week. They always said, our schedule's too full, our schedule's too full. We don't have time for anything. And they won't absorb it anyway. Their brains are all filled with new information. Right. And when we said, we have a fun thing to do, they said, oh, we can fit that in the schedule. And so we've been able to work with them more than once on that, and trying to reach a student within each of the sort of cohort groups that they have, so that at least one person has good feelings and good information about the library and can hopefully spread it out to everybody else. Because we've got 1,300 new students, there's no way we can have them all come through a program.
Right.
One of the more successful partnerships that we've been able to build in the past couple of years is that we just have a information table that can be basically reserved by student organizations, and they all love having that high traffic space in the library to promote whatever their event is, or share information, and so that's really helped us connect a lot with our student organizations on campus.
So other than the partnership I mentioned earlier with Student Health, and then our counseling center on campus, we've also entered in quite a few partnerships with things like our writing center on campus. So now we have a satellite writing center space in the library as well. And again, that's kind of joined in with our Learning Commons, and our Career Center does like resume checkups in our Learning Commons on a fairly regular basis too. And then I was going to mention something. Somebody said something else. I can't remember it, but those are some of the other, like, it's kind of, I think somebody said snowballing earlier. That's kind of what has happened with us, I would say. I've been in this position for about a year now, and it started with very few partnerships, and things just kind of keep building a little bit.
We also been working with both Career Services and the Writing Place, and our tutoring center on campus. Actually, this last quarter, fall quarter, and we're going to be doing it again this winter quarter. An event we called the first one First Quarter First Finals, and we teamed up with the Writing Place and the Tutoring Center in our Learning Commons, or our collaborative space, to kind of highlight that there's librarians here to help you do research, there's the Writing Place there to help you do your writing for your paper, and then there is the Tutoring Center to help you study for your finals. And so we did that 2 weeks before finals, just kind of like, hey, before the crunch hits, these are things that you can take advantage of. And we actually had popcorn, which is super handy anytime. If you can afford the $90 popcorn maker on Amazon, it will pay for itself 100-fold, because we use it for everything now, and people show up because the smell of popcorn carries throughout the entire building. But that was really handy, and it was also a good partnership bringing these people together. Another thing that we've done is the Office of Undergraduate Research was doing visits to every department on campus, and to just talk about research opportunities on campus. And out of that student engagement group, they started bringing in the Office of Fellowships and the library to talk about other opportunities that you can take advantage of if you're doing research. So if you're going to do research, here's the Office of Fellowships. They can help you get a grant. And here's the library, because the library can help you do your research. So those are two of the big ones that we started this last year.
We've come across a similar thing with our coffee percolators that make 100 cups each. If they smell the coffee, they will come running.
Amy, you mentioned space, so let's actually talk about space. So what are some of the pitfalls of giving up space? You know, I mentioned earlier, we all know space is at a premium in the library, in every library, I assume.
I think for us, other than this, again, student pushback, honestly, what we're starting to run into is we want to completely revamp one of our floors, and honestly, we're having the problem with like too many outside departments wanting to have offices in the library. So I mentioned the writing center. They already have a satellite space, but it appears, as far as I know, that they are now going to have a permanent kind of location, and then that means like also potentially career services and each of these other partnerships that we're doing. They almost want to like now have a permanent office in our library, which is slightly nuts because I have no idea how all of this is going to work out. So that's kind of what we're dealing with a little bit.
We transformed our entire building, all 3 floors, into a learning commons. It's the academic commons now, and it meant moving out entirely for a little over 2 years, which was extremely stressful. But I can say that by doing that, and by obviously everybody can't do this individually, but we moved a large portion of our collections off campus and have deliveries every few hours. But that gave us the most in-demand resource that we have, and it's kind of like the gateway drug for all these other units, is our space. If they want to have an event now, they think about us first because we built an event space in the library. Now that meant collections had to go off-site. Not everything, but a large percentage. And that was very, very controversial, but because we deliver them quickly. So anytime when I'm reaching out to partners, I'm always thinking, I have space, I have a PR committee, and I have, information that students really do need, things that will make life better for students if I can only get their attention. And that's usually how I get a hook into other units. But again, with a different space configuration, it was harder. I would go to other places and hold events before the renovation because we didn't have an event room. We didn't have a place large enough to screen films other than 30 people. So that was a challenge. And so I'd say that the pushback has been with faculty. What is this? Is this still a library? But now that it's been operating for a while, they accept it, and now they want to have all their meetings here too.
How do you manage the use of that space by other partners?
We have to beat them off with a stick, kind of like you're talking about. So in terms of internal academic commons service points, they had to show either, because we had some others we had a writing center already, we had a math center already. They had to be really collaborative, and they had to be working directly with students. So not just you want to have your office here because it's going to be a pretty new building. So for the service points, that was a thing. And now for our event space and our group study rooms, we're constantly reassessing, but we've pretty much held the line that we are a library first. And so even our large popular event space, which can seat 200, during finals we block that out for extra study space because we don't want students to say, I came to the library and it was too full to study, but you were having some kind of event with dinner and drinks for alums. That's not okay. So we do have to assess that constantly. We have this sort of glass enclosed teaching space hanging in the middle of the building, and before we opened we said no weddings and no birthday parties, and yes, we've been asked to have weddings there because it's really pretty. I love that people love libraries that much. But so at first it was difficult to set those policies, and it is still difficult for our room scheduler, who we eventually were able to add a part-time room scheduler to enforce them because people want to be here, but we do always try to say it's for students first. And another policy we set was you can't book your events too far out. So that would leave some leeway for students who don't book, if you're booking a conference, you're going to book it 2 years out, right? Student groups aren't going to do that. So we by creating that policy, limited the number of conference types events that people try to hold here. And we don't let them take over all the group study rooms for breakout rooms for conference. So yeah, you can have our large room, but if you don't have breakout rooms, you're probably not going to want to have your conference here. So that policy in itself has helped us. But if the chancellor asks, we say yes. We've had to bend all of our rules for all of our rooms when the chancellor's office asks. So.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, space is a huge resource that I can offer up when I'm negotiating. And I just learned I can give parking passes for the therapy dog people. That's cool. That's
cool.
A big deal, parking.
Yeah, this is something that's definitely been on our mind as well. We have the Writing Place has a satellite that's permanent in the library. Career Services has a satellite that was permanently in the library. And that was a bone of contention with us for a while because they had this very prime real estate in a very popular spot, and they were only there 8 hours a week, 2 days, 4 hours on 2 days. And it was like, we're like, well, if we had this space and we could, let other people use this space when they're not there. And I think they heard us talking about it because all of a sudden this year they've been there every day, about five hours a day, which is, I mean, good. At least they're using it. But that's something that we've been thinking about too, because in these group conversations, people want to take advantage of the fact that we get such high traffic, or one of the most heavily trafficked parts of campus, and compared to these other departments where they're spread out and nobody walks by them, so that they don't even know that these services are there. So a lot of them have actually been doing drop-in hours in our collaborative space. We have like some cafe tables, those tall tables. They just kind of sit there with a sign asking people to step up.
Yeah, our cafe also serves as an overflow place for office hours and informal meetings, or even formal meetings that people say meet in the cafe.
So how do you articulate to your colleagues the impact of campus partnerships? Or how do you recognize the impact of campus partnerships?
This is actually really good timing for me and for the library because we just had a meeting, the public services faculty and we had a meeting last Friday to talk about partnerships, what we're currently doing and what we can do. And as I was talking, I could see the confusion in their eyes first as to why do we need to involve such and such department, until they finally got a hold of, we can't do everything by ourselves, and they can't do everything by themselves, so we might as well work together. We all have the same goal, and some of us have access to certain things. Maybe we should bring our two departments together. And suddenly we started listing ideas. Maybe we're going to work with athletics, maybe we're going to work with career services, and it was so much fun. And I think just by talking to my colleagues and saying, look, this is what I've been doing, maybe we should all be doing it and have it in mind for when we go to different meetings. If we go get free food on campus and we happen to see so-and-so doctor of such and such, maybe we can talk to them about also coming to the library, or us going to them and making that important connection. And so I think really just create buy-in by explaining why it's important to all of us and to students, really, because that's who gains by us working together.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tricky thing that I haven't figured out, because I think if it strays too far from an academic thing, people start to get a little bit nervous. And I think it's really important to have fun things like therapy dogs, and so occasionally I feel like I'm getting the side eye about, not about therapy dogs, but just about like having pizza in the library or something. And then the other piece is that I think you know, you have people that sort of want to stay in their sort of traditional library roles, that everything's about collections and things like that, and not as much about the services that we can offer. So I do struggle with that quite a bit. But yeah, just communication with everyone and trying to get the word out about the positive things that come out of all of these different programs that we have and partnerships.
I think for us, partially because I don't know, there's just a lot of discussion on campus again about like student stress and how students are handling kind of workloads in college and things like that, that it's managed to work pretty perfectly with looking at student lives as like a holistic thing. And so kind of, you know, making sure they have academic services in place in the library, but also looking at some of these other things that could be deemed fun. I mean, fun is such a scary word. But so that's kind of one part of it, is what's going on in my library right now actually fits perfectly in with this larger campus conversation. But also, I think many of my colleagues in the library, at least, are starting to finally understand that each of these partnerships means that it's another chance to communicate to especially our students, but also our faculty members who have never been reached before, and finally getting some information out about our services. So it's really like I'm finally starting to run into like people who are learning these things because of these partnerships. So
I've got two things working in my favor. One is that we have a small enough library faculty, that I get to serve on multiple committees with different people, and we're all into what everybody's doing. And one way that's helped is I share the PR committee, and we have a quarterly strategy meeting, which is tomorrow, and know the agenda's about. I've tried to keep the focus on what is the message that we want to focus on first, and then talk about the audience, and then talk about the channel. So I collect, and I love all these wonderful, I call them neat ideas that staff at all levels are constantly sending me. We should have librarian trading cards, or we should partner with athletics. And I'm like, that's great, but I could run myself ragged doing one-offs with different programs. But when we have some sort of cohesive message that we're saying, we're creating a welcoming place for students. Well, stress relief is part of that, right? Or we're trying to communicate that library faculty are faculty, so let's do displays of faculty publications. Let's host a research seminar that brings other faculty in to hear us about our research and them about their research. So again, that keeps, and it makes it easier for me to communicate to my dean and to external audiences. These are the things that we're doing, and it's quarterly, so it keeps it fresh, but that has really helped. So the PR is overlapping with the outreach, which overlaps with exhibits and exhibits programming, and all those things can be pushing the same message together. You know, right now we're looking at inclusive excellence and sustainability, and so all of those things help us decide with our limited time where we're going to focus our efforts. And then in the end, again, communicating all these things led up to this message for this audience.
Well, we're running short on time here, so I just wanted to ask, just see if there's anything else that we haven't talked about that people actually were really interested in, or really hoping we would actually address. That's amazing. We've covered all of the topics related to campus partners. Well, I'm glad to hear it. So if there's nothing else, then we can probably wrap up. You can talk more, Aaron.
I thought outreach librarians. Come on, we're talking to folks, aren't we?
Right.
it's just awkward online, that's all.
Yeah.
We all want to talk.
That's true.
Well, I can just chime in at the end here. What's complicated about what you're saying is we have a library staff of 4, and as I said, we have no outreach plan, no outreach policy. We have commuter campus. We have students who are typically students who didn't get into any colleges, just barely got into technical school, and have no orientation or relationship to the library. I mean, it's like Sisyphus here. And now they're like, we should do this, we should do outreach. We're going to hire this social media librarian, and it's like, okay, and so listening to some of these things, it's like, it's like a completely different universe of things. So I'm trying to figure out what the takeaway things are. It's like, well, I think the woman in financial aid that I met seems like she might be, it's like specific individuals who might be motivated as opposed to campus entities, but, some kind of co-conspirators who are equally frustrated and equally thwarted constantly, which would probably be the entire campus staff. But so hearing these things, it's like, oh my gosh, therapy dogs, or it's wish list. So starting from a very sort of core set of outreach problems, just literally like how to get bodies into the building, how to, please go to our website to search the catalog, these sort of fundamental things. It's daunting, to say the least.
Lacey, can I make a suggestion? You might focus on if this, it sounds like your student population more than most, and I think most student populations have library anxiety and stress about coming to the library. So that whole welcoming place, friendly faces, if that was your theme for a while and you thought, how can we do that? I know I read about, and it was years ago, but a commuter campus, a lot of immigrants and first-generation college attendees here. It's a co-campus with a community college and the University of Colorado, Denver. So they've got tons of people, but no residential, and they did a potluck of library staff because they had a very diverse library staff, and it was meant to help library staff learn about each other's cultures, and it turned into something that the students got involved with, the student workers, and then it grew, and it just made people feel warm and fuzzy about the library instead of intimidated or overwhelmed, or I only come here because I have a paper and that's a stressful thing, and so I'm always stressed when I come to the library. So that kind of welcoming environment, or I call it, one of my talking points is, we're nice people, you can ask us questions. Right. And if I can communicate that, I may not give you all my talking points in my scavenger hunt that I would in an instruction session, but you now know I'm a nice person that you can ask questions, so maybe you'll come back to the reference desk later.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Thanks.
And it doesn't have to be big,
Yeah.
Start building those small connections.
Yeah.
Yes, scale is interesting to deal with. I'm sort of small and middle size, but when I hear other larger universities have a person who does PR and a person who does outreach, I'm like, yeah, I'm also running the reference desk. So it's, none of us have all the time we wish we had.
Yeah, and I agree. You're right on track with you find people that you think might be interested in what you have to sell, and then just see who, like, I usually talk to, like, maybe the assistant director or the program assistant is always a good person to start with, because they're not too busy with the big picture things, that they're actually willing to, participate, have a conversation, have coffee is a great, basically all the conversations we started over coffee. We just met and just kind of talked about what they're doing.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think that's going to be the main strategy, is you just try to find a single motivated person in a single department and say, okay, what can we do? It feels it's a heady thing though.
Well, awesome, everybody. Thank you so much for participating in today's roundtable. This is just the first one that we're doing. Next month, we'll be doing one around outreach to via social media. So that'll be super helpful for you, Lacey. So you should come back for that one, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I will.
And then April will be talking about a very hot topic: how to assess outreach efforts. I'm, for one, am very interested in see what people have to talk about that, because assessing outreach has been, in my experience, one of the toughest things to do. So, with no further ado, thanks a lot for coming out, and will be posted on YouTube if you want to review our awesome conversation and the fantastic ideas if you didn't get a chance to write them down. And thanks for coming in.
All right.
Thanks a
for
lot.
having us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.